No one saw it coming. Not her neighbors, not her coworkers, not even the barista who memorized her coffee, ordered down to the extra caramel drizzle. But that morning, something in Karen Whitmore's smile cracked, like a mirror finally giving way, after years of tiny, invisible stress lines. It started at 6:32 a.m. Karen stood in front of her pristine marble bathroom counter, brushing her hair with the same calculated precision she did everything else. 100 strokes on the right, 100 on the left. But today, on stroke 94, she stopped mid-brush. In the mirror, she didn't see the polished woman with perfect lipstick and controlled eyes. She saw someone tired, someone dangerous. Her phone buzzed, again. Another email marked urgent from her boss, time-stamped before sunrise. She glanced at the subject line. Need those reports by 9? No excuses. Karen's lips twitched. She didn't open it. Then came the second hit. A text from the Homeowners Association about her non-regulation rose bushes. Then the third. The neighbor's dog had dug into her lawn again. And the fourth. A voicemail from her ex-husband's lawyer reminding her the settlement papers were still unsigned. By 7:10 a.m., Karen's neat kitchen smelled faintly of burnt toast. She stared at the smoke rising from the toaster and, for the first time in years, didn't rush to fix it. The crack widened. She left her house in silence, her gold heels clicking on the driveway. She didn't take the sedan. She didn't take the bus. She just walked, straight past her office, past the boutique coffee shop, past the life she had been holding together with threadbare patience. The city felt different today. Louder, brighter. Every voice, every horn, every flashing billboard felt like it was speaking directly to her, daring her to react. By 9:42 a.m., Karen found herself standing outside City Hall, staring up at the glass doors, like they were the gates to something she had no business entering. Her heart was calm, too calm. Inside, a council meeting was in progress. She had no invitation, no reason to be there, but she pushed through the doors anyway. Every head turned. Karen smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that had nothing to do with politeness. And in that moment, no one could have guessed that what she was about to say would start a chain of events the entire city would remember for years. She cleared her throat, stepped to the microphone, and began. The council chamber was a quiet ocean of stiff suits and polite murmurs, broken only by the shuffle of papers and the faint hum of air conditioning. All that stopped when Karen's gold heels tapped their final step against the wooden floor. She stood at the podium, hands resting lightly on either side, scanning the room as though she owned it. "Excuse me," she began, her voice smooth yet strangely sharp. "I wasn't on your agenda today, but your agenda seems to be the problem." Half the room stiffened. A balding man in the front row adjusted his tie, clearly wondering who let her in. Karen continued, each word deliberate, each syllable a tiny spark waiting to ignite something bigger. "For years, I've watched you make decisions that chip away at this city's heart. You pave over the parks, cut funding to libraries, then send glossy flyers about community improvement. Like we're supposed to thank you for it." A woman in the back whispered something to her neighbor. Karen's eyes snapped toward her. "Don't whisper," she said, not raising her voice but somehow freezing the air. "If you have something to say, say it where everyone can hear." The room fell silent again. Karen leaned closer to the microphone. "I woke up today with no plan to be here, but when a person gets pushed far enough, plans don't matter. Emails from bosses at dawn, neighbors who think property lines are suggestions, lawyers who can't let the past stay in the past." She shook her head. "And you, the people in this room, pretending you serve us while serving yourselves." The council chair cleared his throat. "Ma'am, this is highly inappropriate." Karen smiled, slow and dangerous. "No. What's inappropriate is building a new parking structure when the shelter downtown can't keep the heat on. What's inappropriate is telling the rest of us to be patient while you sign contracts with companies you play golf with on weekends." A few people in the audience actually clapped, hesitant at first, then louder. Phones came out recording. Karen's voice grew steadier, more alive. "You have built walls around this chamber. Not the kind made of brick, but the kind built on silence, paperwork, and the hope that no one notices. Well, I noticed, and I'm not the only one." She stepped back from the microphone, but her eyes stayed locked on the council members like a challenge. "Consider this your notice," she said. "The people you've ignored are done being quiet." And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving the room buzzing like a shaken beehive. By the time Karen got home, she already had 50 unread messages. Not from friends, she barely had any of those left, but from strangers. It started with a single video, uploaded by a college student who'd been sitting in the back row during the council meeting. 10 minutes after she walked out, it hit social media. By noon, it had 500,000 views. The caption read, This woman just roasted the city council and I'm here for it. Clips of her calling out walls built on silence were spliced over protest footage. Dramatic music added for flair. Someone even looped her line. Consider this your notice, over a bass-heavy beat. Karen wasn't a fan of attention, at least not this kind. She preferred control, the quiet, polished kind. But now control was gone. The next morning her boss left a voicemail. Karen, maybe you should take some time off. The tone said, or never come back. Outside her front door, the mail slot clattered with flyers. Not the HOA complaints she was used to, but invitations to speak at rallies, interviews for podcasts, even a local news request. By the third day, the energy in the city had shifted. People she'd never met stopped her on the street. A barista gave her a coffee on the house and whispered, "We needed someone to say it." But attention was a double-edged blade. Across the street, an older man spat on the sidewalk when he saw her. Two women in sharp blazers passed by, muttering loud enough for her to hear. She's just chasing clout. Her phone pinged again. This time it wasn't praise. Unknown number. You've made enemies. Hope you know what you're doing. Karen stared at the message for a long time. She had no idea who sent it. By that night, the council's official account released a statement. While we respect the right to free speech, misinformation is dangerous. We encourage residents to seek facts before making accusations. It wasn't just a dismissal. It was a warning shot. The next morning, Karen woke to the sound of chanting outside her apartment. From her balcony, she saw a crowd, signs waving, voices rising. Some had her name written in bold letters. Others carried slogans she'd never said, but now were pinned to her image. Karen realized the city wasn't just stirred. It was waking up, and once it fully opened its eyes, there would be no putting it back to sleep. It didn't take long for the council to sharpen their claws. By Monday morning, Karen's name was on the evening news, not as a hero, but as a disruptive element. The segment was polished, clinical, and laced with phrases like unsubstantiated claims and emotional outburst. They dug into her past, too. A parking ticket from 2014, a lawsuit from her divorce, even an old HOA dispute about a garden fence. Every scrap of her history was suddenly public property. Her phone rang again. This time it was her sister. "Karen, they're making you look unhinged," she whispered. "Just let it go before this gets ugly." But it was already ugly. That afternoon, a thick envelope arrived at her door. Inside, a formal notice that her employer was reviewing her position due to public conduct unbecoming of a company representative. No explanation, no discussion, just a letter. Karen sat at her kitchen table, the sunlight spilling in like nothing was wrong, and read the words 3 times. They weren't firing her because of poor performance. They were firing her because she'd spoken too loudly. And yet, quitting wasn't in her nature. By the next day, she was back outside City Hall. Not shouting, not holding a sign, just present, watching, listening, letting them feel. Her eyes on them every time they stepped out. It rattled them. She could see it in the way they avoided her gaze, in the way security guards started lingering a little too close. But the real hit came in the form of a leaked email sent to a local reporter, claiming Karen was being funded by outside political interests. It was a lie, a deliberate one, but it spread fast. Comments on her videos turned hostile. Knew she was a plant. She's just another pawn. Guess she's not so different from the people she's calling out. For the first time, Karen felt the weight of the crowd shifting. Not entirely against her, but not fully behind her anymore. That night, as rain hammered her windows, she stared at the city skyline. It looked the same as it always had. Glass, steel, and light. But to her, it felt different now. It felt like an opponent. She knew if she stopped here, the narrative would swallow her whole. She'd be a headline for a week, then a footnote no one remembered. So she made a choice. Tomorrow, she wouldn't just stand outside City Hall. She'd go in, again. And this time, she wasn't going alone. The next morning, Karen didn't wake to silence. She woke to the low rumble of voices outside her window. When she stepped onto her balcony, the sight below stopped her cold. Dozens of people stood there. Strangers, neighbors, even the barista who'd once slipped her free coffee. Some held signs. Others carried nothing but determination in their faces. Someone shouted, "We're going with you." And just like that, she wasn't walking alone. The group moved through the city like a slow, steady current, drawing more people as they went. Phones filmed, car horns honked, shop owners stepped out to watch. By the time they reached City Hall, the steps were overflowing. Inside, the council was already in session. Karen didn't wait for permission. She walked straight to the microphone again, the crowd pressing in behind her like a living wall. "You tried to bury me," she began, her voice carrying through the chamber. "You dug up my past, called me a liar, twisted my words. You thought I'd disappear. She paused, sweeping her gaze over the room. But I'm still here. And I'm not alone anymore. One councilman leaned forward, jaw tight. Ma'am, this isn't a disruption, Karen cut in. This is the sound of the city waking up. Look outside those windows. These aren't paid actors. These are your neighbors, your voters, the people you swore to represent. Murmurs rippled through the room. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Tell them about the shelter." Another yelled, "The library funding." Voices rose, overlapping, refusing to be ignored. Karen gripped the podium tighter. You've hidden behind procedures and closed doors long enough. Today, we're opening them. The council chair tried to gavel the room into silence, but the sound was drowned out by the crowd's chant. Open the books! Open the books! Karen didn't shout with them. She just stood there, calm, unshaken, letting their voices fill the space. In that moment, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about everyone who'd been told to wait, to be patient, to stay quiet. And as the chants grew louder, she saw it, a flicker of unease in the council members' eyes. Not fear of her, but fear of the fact they couldn't control the room anymore. Karen stepped back from the microphone. This is just the beginning, she said softly, but it carried. Outside, the crowd erupted as the doors to City Hall swung open. The day Karen snapped didn't end with her. It had only just begun.